Hey everybody, Rick from Stellar. Today I want to talk to you about spinning content, what it is, how to spot it, and mostly how to avoid getting it. With all eyes lately been on guard for AI generated content, this age-old trick has kind of taken a back seat, but it's one you need to be, I'd say even more vigilant about. So content spinning is taking an existing article and rewriting it, changing the wording, using a lot of synonyms or restructuring sentences, not adding any information gain or anything value, and then passing off that content as new. It's not quite copying, but it basically is. So why do we need to be more vigilant about content spinning? In the past, it had to be done manually. A writer would pick one of the top ranking articles, and if it fits the bill to what the client is looking for, they basically just go through and take it paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, reorganize the thoughts a little bit, use synonyms for what the person is saying, and that's it. So it's still a little time consuming, faster than writing an article from scratch, but still takes a little time. Now with AI, a simple prompt is all it takes to spin existing content into something that's completely unique, will pass plagiarism, and sadly, oftentimes will pass review with a client. So in the worst cases, spun content can literally be one-to-one. You open an article, maybe it might even be the top ranking article for the keyword you're trying to target, and you'll see every subhead, the exact order of the article is the same as what you've got, what your writer has created. The thoughts within each section are all the same. It's the same article using different words. That's a one-to-one spin, really easy to find, really bad for your website. There are better spinners who will use 2 or 3 or more articles and take the ideas from different ones and kind of stitch them together. It takes a little longer, definitely harder to spot, but does the same as any spun content in that it provides no additional value, no new information, and doesn't have your business's perspective and ideas. So if it's not plagiarism, is it bad? Yeah, it's bad. Spun content adds no new information. It adds no additional value for your audience. It adopts someone else's perspective and ideas when those should be your own. Those ideas may not even align with your brand. And it can erode trust with your audience, especially those who just came from the article that a writer spun, found it not to have what they're looking for. Now they're essentially reading the same thing again on your blog. So why do writers spin content? Well, there's a few reasons. Let's talk about them. The first is the worst, right? You've just got a lazy writer who's found a way to make money without doing a whole lot of work. Those are the bad apples. Those are the ones you find that, you've got to get rid of them. But it's not always the writer's fault. Here's what I mean by that. So sometimes you have a writer who's a good, strong, generalist writer. They may not have a lot of knowledge about your subject matter. This actually happens quite frequently. If they're not provided with a decent content brief that breaks down how they're going to approach the topic, that informs them of your unique audience, that provides them with the information gain that they're going to use, which directs them on how they're going to differentiate from the existing articles, and through the outline lays the foundation for all the different sections that they should discuss, and what type of information to include in those sections, then that writer may have to resort to ultimately spinning. And it's just a question of how good at it are they? Are they doing the one-to-one, or are they pulling different thoughts and ideas from other sources online? Another example of when it's not really the writer's fault is when they are provided a content brief, but it's a weak content. You can accomplish the same spinning tactic with a content brief that a writer would by just doing a one-to-one. So if the person building out your brief simply looked at the top couple of ranking articles, said, here's what they did, that's what we're going to do, and uses that as the basis for their outline and passes that off to the writer, you ultimately end up with similarly spun content. They'll do a better job of rewording because they're not actually rewording, but you can still see it's the same thoughts and ideas, follows the same flow as those source sites that were used in your outline. Finally, another way you can end up, and this is often a client who leads to this, will heavily stress how much they really like this article. This one that some competitor did, it's great, it's perfect, it's exactly what we're looking for. And they kind of lead the writer to basically creating the same article. Now, spotting it gets a little tricky. There are some tools out there. I'm not going to name any. I'm not going to vouch for any because, like AI detectors, they're often unreliable. But if you want to Google spun content detector, content spinning detector, or checker, you'll find some of them and you can try them out. But beyond that, it's the human review. So if you're reviewing content, you might want to be familiar with what the top ranking articles are doing to see if the article you're reviewing is basically a carbon copy with synonyms of those. But the main way that a red flag might go off in your head is by noticing just odd word choices. The thing with spinning content is to avoid plagiarism. Everybody uses a plagiarism checker these days. So depending on what the settings are, it could be really tight where it only takes, a string of 4 or 5 words to trigger a flag for plagiarism, which could lead the reviewer to the original article and see that it's spun. So to avoid this, those who are practiced at spinning content will make sure that they avoid any 4 or 5 word stretch where they're using the same words. That often leads to odd word choices and strange sentence structures. Using words that there's an obvious, more common way to say the thing that the writer can't use because the original writer did, because that's the way you would say it. So if you spot writing that seems just a little off, making strange word choices, that should be a sign that you might have something. Takes a little detective work to then go and try to find where it's spun from. But in all honesty, prevention is the best medicine here. Preventing spun content comes down to your content brief. If it's done right, the outline and the other components of the brief will lead the writer, even if they're a generalist, to create content that reflects who you are as a brand, what your business is about, how your business does things. Just because there's a lot of businesses in your industry doesn't mean you all do the things the same way. It doesn't mean you don't look at things the same way, you have the same opinion on how to do something. Just look at content marketing. We've all got half of you are going to disagree with some of the things I've said. The other half might agree or would approach it a different way, right? So there's no shortage of opinions, and those opinions need to work their way into your content brief for your writers. If you have internal writers, they should be trained up on this stuff. But if you are outsourcing using freelancers, you've got to get that information to them. So strong content briefs are absolutely the number one defense in spun content. You should be finding or figuring out what your differentiation and or information gain is going to be in the content brief. These are pre-production tasks. These aren't things that should be left up to the writer. They are not the person who should be determining what your business's stance is on something, how your business feels about a new development in the industry. This is a generalist writer. Their skill is communicating information, not creating information. So invest in content briefs and make sure they're done correctly. That will lead writers to create unique information that reflects you as a brand.